Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively merging the brands, pulling things together, and heading down to Texas. I'm actually going to go to my first vacant football game this week from the top of a really big stadium with a really high press box that I'll be looking down. There'll be a little ant that looks like Deshaun Watson, a little ant looks like Lamar Jackson running around. I'll look up on the TV screens like I could do with my cat this weekend. But I'm probably going because John McClain and Mark Vandermeer and friends like Steph Stradley are there in Houston.
No, I'm not going in person.
Well, that's okay. I'm going for you. That's fine.
Thank
but
you.
You're in Houston. It's all true, right?
Yes.
What's the vibe, man? You guys struggled on Thursday night. Now we're coming down. We play the Chiefs next week. This is quite a way to kick off the season. I mean, we're going to figure out what we're made of pretty early, and it won't be the Cleveland Browns who sort that out for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they did not do the Chiefs, the Texans, and the Ravens any favors with the early schedules, especially the Texans' early schedule is just a brutality. I mean, if they can survive this stretch of games with their players intact, I mean, I think that might actually end up being part of their goal, because I think the AFC South is just going to be kind of, what it's been like the last couple of years, where they're just kind of beating on each other, and then like a 9-win team gets to the playoffs, maybe a 10-win team, maybe not.
Well, I mean, in Indianapolis certainly changed things up, and Jacksonville's always changing things up, right? Tennessee, you thought they would be the strength, and they better find a kicker before next week, before it's all over with.
Yeah.
But for the Ravens, they've become the primetime team, right? Like,
Sure.
We're playing Thanksgiving, we're playing all these Thursday night games against the Cowboys, all these teams in December, allegedly, if we get there and wash our hands and wear a mask. But for Lamar and for what he represents as the MVP of the league, this would have been one of those pack them in type of things, and now I'm going to show up, and apparently I'm not even going to smell barbecue on the trail into the stadium on Sunday. These are really, really weird times, and I know you live in a really weird place, Texas.
It's not weird. It's wonderful.
Well, for those of us from the outside, we follow the politics, so we're sort of up on these things. But you guys have had your own battles with COVID down there in a massive way, where maybe it hit the East Coast earlier. Now it's hit you. I guess nationwide, where we're arguing football and red and blue, and football's the one thing that sort of bringing us together here now, right? I mean, we've all waited for this. I'm into the soap opera because my team's good.
Yeah, I have to say that I had one of the early cases of COVID in Houston. I had it in March, and I do not recommend it.
Well, I remember when you being a part of this, and for you, give your experience of what it was about and what it's been about for your community as well.
Well, my personal experience was I went to Colorado with like a fun trip, with my friends. And at that time, it wasn't a hot spot. It ended up being that it was a hot spot. I came home. I asymptomatically gave it to my husband.
Oh, wow.
And we were both sick at the same time for about 3 weeks. Fortunately, our daughter is a very responsible person and was able to take care of herself for the most part. And I mean, we're both fine now, but I do not recommend it. I mean, I really think the message needs to get out that for, it's not a question of lockdowns versus, living. It's a question of how do we live with the virus? How do we thread the needle so that we can continue to do things? Because it spreads so easily. And, some people have no symptoms. Some people have the worst things happen to them. Like, it gives you some.
Well, even in the aftercare, right? Like, checking on your heart and checking on all of these things that now we know. My wife and I both believe we had it in January. My wife was sick the whole month of January. We had been in Asia. We had been in Seoul, and we had been in Tokyo back in December. And, we believe we had it, but there's no test for that that's reliable enough for us to know. I'm quite frankly shocked they're playing football to some degree. I would have bet against this in May and June. I spoke out against this in July. I wondered aloud whether I would be getting on a plane and going to Houston in week 2, whether there'd be a game, whether I would feel safe enough. I have not flown in 7 months since you got COVID coming back from Colorado. I'm going to fly for the first time this week. I'm coming down there. I don't know why. I don't feel like I'm risking a lot flying to do it. I am doing it as the writer in me and the journey guy in me and the experiential guy in me who went to 30 baseball ballparks. I like the adventure part of it. I have a feeling this is going to be a pretty solemn little afternoon for me in Houston that I'm going to remember in, dare I say, not such a good way, but certainly I don't want to be attending empty football games much longer.
Well, I mean, I have a mixed feeling about it. I mean, I think that masks can make a big difference. When I got it, nobody was wearing masks. The planes were completely packed, shoulder to shoulder. There wasn't much care done in the airports to prevent things, I mean, other than hand sanitizer. So, I mean, our understanding of COVID has changed over time about, there are some activities that are riskier than other activities. So like, I think that football, I mean, the reason why we're having football is, just frankly, money.
That's it.
When there's enough money, you can spend the money to make things safer. And I know over at NRG Stadium where this game's going to be held, they're doing everything that they can to keep the virus out. Now, they don't have a true bubble like, the NBA has, but, each player is trying to do their best to not bring it into the stadium. And so I feel good about football. I don't feel good about fans in the stands because at least what I saw with college football this weekend, for example, or some of the high school games that you've seen around here, people don't look like they're very careful. And, as a group, younger people don't get the virus as bad, but they can still spread it to other people. Like, I hate to say it, but, it was a grim thought thinking at the worst of it that are we going to orphan our kids? I mean, that was as grim of a thought that you can possibly have. And so even if an individual feels good about their own chances, each person, if they're not wearing a mask and they're not taking any precautions, can spread it to 3 other people. And, it doesn't make it less, it doesn't make it more moral if you don't know who those people are that you might have hurt. I mean,
Steph Stradley is here.
Situation. It's hard to thread the needle between doing the things that we need to do versus doing the things that we want to do. And it's not forever. Like, we keep on getting better tools to deal with this. Like, when I had it, people weren't wearing masks. Now we know what masks can do. Now we know, what situations are more dangerous. Outside situations are not as dangerous as indoor places without good ventilation. We're getting more knowledge. We're getting more treatments. We're getting, vaccines eventually. So we need to use the tools we have until we have more tools. I mean, it's just common sense. It's just that in the individual situations, it's kind of harder to know, okay, can I do this? Can I not do this? And I think you going to this game as a journalist, where, you're going to be wearing a mask, the planes aren't as crowded. They're taking more steps now. Maybe that's safer. I mean,
I don't feel compromised coming down. If I did, I wouldn't. If there were 38,000 people in the building and they were encouraging people to come down to tailgate. Steph Stradley is here. I want to fully reset from the Houston Chronicle. She writes about the NFL. She's an attorney. You can find her at Steph Stradley out on Twitter or Stradley Law, as well as at the Houston Chronicle, or Texans Chick from time to time. And I am participating in her little fun breakdown of the game. You can find that out at Houston Chronicle as well. I guess for COVID and where the league is and the money part of this, there is the football part of this that in Ohio this week, they're going to have people. In Jacksonville last week, they had people. Kansas City last week, where you guys played, there were some people. We're starting to see some things open up. I would say that this is so counterintuitive for all of us as Americans, where everything we've ever tried to do was to bring people together, whether it's church and religion or schools or functions or events, family gatherings. We gather. We're human beings, right? So the whole notion of college football, I remember when he said, well, college football, they're taking away our ability to gather. Yeah, that's exactly what they're trying to do. Like the notion that these games are happening and that some people may show up. I wonder what the value of having those people in Kansas City was the other night, right? Like or in Jacksonville, like what are you trying to do by bringing together a little bit of people? I don't know. They're not making a whole lot of money. It probably costs more to open a stadium than it does to have 6,000 people in it logistically, right? Especially during this era. I do wonder where the push and the pull, and a lot of it is political at this point, if state to state, municipality to municipality, because I think the risk is still there for all of us as long as there is a virus that we have no cure for. But the idea of gathering, I think, has been the interesting part of the last 6 months, that it's so counterintuitive to our nature.
Well, sure. I mean, I think that's kind of the odd framing that a lot of people have, which is that, we want freedom, we don't want lockdowns. Well, nobody wants lockdowns. The question is, how can we live our lives in a way where we're being responsible to ourselves, our communities, our first responders, everybody who's vulnerable in our populations? How do we do this? And these questions are so hard and not something that we have had to really deal with in our lifetime. And it really shouldn't be political. It shouldn't be political. Like right now, I'm texting with a college student who has COVID right now, and just kind of letting her know, yeah, this feels normal. This is what you need to do while you have it. And we're just kind of helping our way. I mean, the good news that we have in our society is we're talking right now. We can see each other in the eyes.
Well, we're talking more than we've ever talked, right? From a communication standpoint, when we talk, we don't talk one-on-one anymore. We talk one-to-many, literally, right?
And think about it. Like, think about if this would have happened pre-internet. Like some things may have been easier to deal with, and some things would have been much harder to deal with. If you look during the flu pandemic, they had like outdoor classes where people were wearing, heavy coats. I mean,
but they also had one message, and the message was, there's a plague, it's real. We're going to give you governmental guidance, medical advice from the best people in our society, and then you're going to have to listen to that advice. We've come a long way in 100 years, haven't we, Steph?
Well, I mean, the flip side is it's incredibly hard when you've worked your whole life for a particular thing. Let's say you have a business and you think that the restrictions in place for your business are too much and you're losing everything. That's a hard reality to wrap your mind around. And
I have lots of friends in that position, obviously in the restaurant industry, entertainment industry, all of the things that are still really shut down. My friends at Planet Fitness, in gyms where, and a friend of mine tweeted the other day, 25%, there is no business model for a restaurant to survive at 25% long term.
Yeah. And so at least for me during this time, I'm always looking for things that we can bring people together about. Like, we disagree about a lot of things, but we should agree about some basic things. Like, we shouldn't drive drunk for freedom. Well, we shouldn't be going maskless in large crowds for freedom. Like that, I don't think that should be something that we should agree on as people.
Well, you get the President of the United States holding indoor rallies in states where it's illegal. I don't know what more to say. That is not leadership to my way of thinking. That's why I created Baltimore Positive. Steph Stradley's our guest. She's at the Houston Chronicle. Some point we'll get to football, right? I mean, it's great. It's affected your life. It's affected your family. It's affected all of us, right? And now we're going to take the opiate at 425 or 325 Central on Sunday, right? We're going to take the little magic red, white, and blue NFL pill for a couple of hours on a Sunday. I thought that was a bad idea. Now that we're into it, I'm like, well, I mean, it's not changing the plague, but it's making Sunday better. Yeah, I've come around to thinking that, Steph.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure. Like, we just started this. I know that, like, there's discussions about, coaches wearing masks and what kind of masks and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you look at Bill Belichick, he wears the safest mask you can wear on the sidelines. And right now, this feels good. I pray every day that people stay responsible so that we can continue to have these things. Like, for example, Bill O'Brien has a child that has some severe challenges. He cannot get this virus.
My wife's a diabetic who's a 2-time bone marrow transplant survivor. So
yes. So there's thousands upon millions of people in those circumstances. And we just need to try our best. We're all just trying. We're just trying. It's better if we model the behavior that we want to see. And what that is love. Like, everything starts with love. We can agree on love, and then we work out from there. If we can get people in that love and that positivity that you talk about, we can agree on that. And then we use that to work out wider. You start from there and you work outside, and eventually you get enough people that agree on the same thing. And I know that sounds kind of Pollyanna and stuff, but I believe that to the base of myself.
I'll tell you what, one thing we share was a love of the Houston Oilers. So at least we have that. I was going to bring my Oilers stuff's all out at the radio station because it's kind of in storage. But I mean, I have the little pom-pom hat with the ball that I got at the Sears outlet in 1979, with Earl Campbell and Love You Blue. And, I used to wear that. Scott Medora used to pull it off my head in 7th grade. I was an Oiler fan, and coming down there and seeing what football means in your community and bringing people together. And Deshaun Watson represents, and I think J.J. Watt as well, the Texans have really been good at that part of it. They haven't won Super Bowls. They haven't won enough games in January. And Lord knows you don't want to bring up that game last year with Kansas City. We've had a couple of parades here. Houston's been kicking on the door, and Bum Phillips and all that. And I had McClain on talking about it. And Pastorini has come on many times to talk to me about that. I might chase him down before it's all over with as well. But for your community and what Deshaun Watson represents, and your community's had a lot of, you're always in the striking distance of a storm every year. Things happen in your community, but to have leadership in sports, and I know the Astros are a whole different story right now, but for what Deshaun Watson represents for that community, didn't have a football team 2 decades ago for a little while, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, football is king. The disturbing thing for a lot of local fans is that they've kind of played struggle ball for a while when they didn't have a quarterback, and now they have Deshaun Watson and they're still playing struggle ball. Like, it's not like Patrick Mahomes pairs up with Andy Reid and sets the world on fire. Deshaun Watson's here. He had some great, outstanding, like, really incredible games when he was a rookie before he got hurt. And that's what got Bill O'Brien an extension. It's like, okay, great. He's going to continue doing this. And then since then, it's been struggle ball. They've tried to put the offense together. They've kind of almost big-footed their way into getting players, and in the meantime, their defense has fallen off.
Well, they got rid of their second best player too, right? I mean,
second best. He might have been the best. I mean,
defensively putting it together around J.J. Watt. And, I mean, I remember the Hard Knocks episode. You mentioned Bill O'Brien's a child. We saw all of that. And saw DeAndre Hopkins as well. For J.J. Watt, that to me feels like he was the best player in the league for a minute. I don't know that it'll ever be that again, because I think that comes and goes. And what we saw here with Ray Lewis, where it's still, there's a level of greatness post 30, post injuries and all of that stuff, but you're never 26 or 27 again in that league, right?
Although I will say, with defensive players, you can play at a high level for a long time. And yes, he has had a variety of injuries, although they haven't been completely related. I just don't think on defense you can be a one-man show, and that's what he is on the defensive line. I mean, that's what he is.
Well, he tore us apart down there when he was in his youth. So we're coming down. We're coming for an empty stadium. It's do you have any vibe to want to be there? I had my press pass taken away by the Orioles 15 years ago. I don't go to Oriole games, so I haven't been to an empty stadium yet. Luke has done about 20 of the games. He did the Ravens game. We only had one seat in the box. I'm not sure I really want to do it. I feel some level of some obligation because I've missed 7 Ravens games in 24 years, right? Like I go home away, I go this continent, that continent, wherever they play. But when my wife had leukemia, I went to games. So it's weird missing any game, but I did sit in bed with my cat and watched week 1 with Iron Eagle, and my wife came running in the back and high-fived me, and I thought, well, this doesn't suck. It's just not being there, and I just hope there comes a point that they're there again and that I want to be there again. And I find the value of spending a couple $100 on a Sunday to want to be there, right? Like I have for the last 25 years. There is a point in this where you get used to staying at home and the cost of it and the hassle for a lot of people. I walked, stayed a couple blocks from my house, but this is going to change sports forever in a lot of ways. And there are going to be Texans fans out there who aren't looking forward to going. But, the backfill of what sports is going to need to do to refill places at that price point is going to be a whole different conversation 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. I think that there's going to be some unintentional consequences of this that they're going to study that we don't even know about yet.
Yeah, I think at least for me, I have missed one regular season game in person since the beginning of the Houston Texans, and that was because I gave birth. So I love.
And you went into labor the week before, but you stayed all 4 quarters, right?
No. But my doctor said it was cool. He's also a season ticket holder, and I have to say, I love the energy of being in an in-person game. The tailgating and energy is tremendous. But I think there's 2 things that are going to be hard on the flip side of this. I mean, like right now for this season, and this is just personal to my experience after having COVID. Like I've been told that I might not get it back, but I might get it back, or it might be worse, or it might not be as bad. Nobody knows because it's a novel, meaning new coronavirus. But what my personal experience with it was bad enough that when I am out in public places, or if I'm watching people on TV, not really thinking that they can get it, but they certainly can, it causes me pain because I can just see the suffering that they may be causing to themselves or other people.
I am going to be washing my hands. I'm going to be wearing a mask. I'm not going to be sitting near anybody. I'm going to be.
But when we're talking about large groups of fans that are untested and unrelated, and they're coming from all different places, and then they go back and see their communities with this illness because there's a delay in the amount of time that when you are exposed.
Well, we're seeing that with Sturgis right now, right? Clearly.
Yeah, and so there's that tension. And then there's also the tension of people who legitimately feel extreme discomfort from the anthem, the protests during the anthem, that they have a hard time with that whole situation. Now, that's a hard thing to breach because I don't think that the people talking about the protests are talking to each other very well. And I think that there are some people who benefit from that, like who who benefit from making people angrier about those subjects. You know, and I get the sides. I understand the points that people are making on that, like where there's personal reasons why they feel the way that they do. And I think part of it comes from everyone seeing the most extreme positions of different sides, you know.
Well, positions that lead to violence, period. That would be an extreme position.
Yes, like the viewpoint, you know, it doesn't matter how much a player might say, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement to me just means that our lives matter. For some people, it means to have animus towards police officers and make their jobs more difficult. And they feel that in their hearts, and they have family members that are police officers, and that's the way they feel. And it's very difficult to get away from that. But I think the point that you made is the right one. The extreme positions that advocate violence are the ones that are bad, and that the focus should be, if we can't agree on the protests, which there won't be agreement, what we can agree with is if you talk to people in the criminal justice system as individuals and as people and say, hey, are there things that we can do to make this better for everyone, to make everyone feel more safe? There's plenty of things that people can agree on. But the focus tends not to be on that. The focus tends to be on the things to make people angrier. And
differences we might, quite frankly, never ideologically bridge. Probably will never ideologically bridge. We have to learn to live together or perish.
I don't believe that. I think that there are people with all different sorts of views who want to form a more perfect union. That's what they want for America, a more perfect union. It's just that there's two things that have to happen. Trust, right? And part of that trust is having people not feel afraid.
Trust comes from truth, though, Steph, right? So, yes. You know, not believing the same thing is true is a baseline for disaster. When we cannot agree that sky is blue, then we have a real problem, or what a fact is. And whether wearing a mask is scientifically going to keep more of us alive, that's a pretty baseline agreement that 99% of scientists around the planet would agree with, in addition to why the trees are burning north and west of us, right? So
I mean, I think eventually we can get to that point if all of us as individuals say we want to work together, not to highlight the most extreme positions, because that's what news is. News, I mean, I'm not doggedly saying the media is this. I'm saying that this is not something new. This is something forever. You and I having a conversation, I guess it might be news if we're talking about, you know, football, right? But there's also—
It would only be news if we said something really stupid.
Yeah.
Then it becomes
news. So like, you know, people just talking and having a good time isn't news. What's news is like, whoa, what is this, right? It's the most extreme things that tend to get the most traction.
Sensational by its very nature. Yes. It stands out, right?
And the new media that we have, just the new medium of us talking like this, it's almost like Skynet. Skynet can encourage kind of anger, or it's kind of like the Ghostbusters, you know, where the ghosts get angered up and kind of propagate the more angry people get. I mean, the algorithms encourage anger. It encourages division. And we have to be intentional in saying everything starts with love. Everything starts with a mutual understanding and working out from there.
Well, we'll disagree on the Texans and the Ravens on Sunday, but we can get along with all the rest of it, Steph.
No, what we can agree on is love who you love. Be a fan of what you love. Just don't be obsessive and be a jerk about it.
Well, I wish I were coming down and eating your barbecue on Sunday, but I'm going to come in and come out, and a couple of years from now, we'll get together again and hopefully have some barbecue, maybe a Super Bowl where we've met in the past. But I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us. I will be participating. Tell me what your thing is at the Houston Chronicle so that I'm filling out, because I've done this like a game plan thing, right?
Yeah, I've written for the Chronicle since 2006, and I think the thing I've enjoyed the most is interacting with people like you and go, hey, I want to pick your brain. Let me think, let my readers know more about the Baltimore Ravens, because I really think that you enjoy a game more if you know more what to expect and the highlights of those games. And,
well, Lamar's going to run a lot, and you're going to have to tackle him. And that's really an issue for a lot of teams. And he throws the ball better than the media says he does.
Well, but,
so there's your report.
Why throw the ball if you don't have to? I mean, the running game is so efficient. And what I like about the Ravens and just watching them is if you have a way of doing football that nobody else really does, it makes it really hard to prepare for it. And when you have really good players doing that, that is really hard to prepare for. Like, you don't have some guy on your practice squad like him. So, I mean, it's a load dealing with the Ravens. It just is.
Well, they win a lot, so I'm hoping they win a lot this week. It's always great to visit with you. I wish I had more time to hang out in Houston and go see my cousin and Katie, who's a huge Texans fan, and give her a raft of grief about the cheating Astros, which I let you off the hook on. That's for next time. I'm trying to be neighborly and give love.
No, oh, come on.
Cheaters.
We're not talking baseball here.
No, don't rip my shirt off. No, not my shirt. My wife wouldn't want to see that. Don't do that. Don't. Come on now. They're cheaters, and even though they have great uniforms, and even though Altuve is of my people, he's Venezuelan.
No.
Denial will get you nowhere.
No. If we're going to talk about this, you're not talking about baseball now. You're talking about feels ball. You're like, oh, this form of cheating is wrong, but this form of cheating is not wrong.
I'm not going on written rules. I'm going on banging on the trash cans. That's what I'm going on.
Baseball. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. And they just made the Astros.
Spoken like an Astros fan. There it is right there.
They made the Astros look. I mean, we're just talking about
I've met people like you, but they're usually Patriots fans. Usually.
No. The deal is there is laws and rules, and then there's culture. And there's been kind of a battle between that and baseball, and Rob Manfred totally screwed the pooch with it. If you wanted to not have people do that, they should have gotten rid of that as an option years ago. And nobody wants really in-depth discussions about this and in-depth investigations across the league on this, because everybody was doing it.
Okay. All right. That doesn't make it right. Everybody in the Republican government stealing money right now, but that doesn't make it right. So I've watched DC.
Feelings. That's not baseball. That's feels ball.
No. It's called cheating, and the Dodgers certainly felt that. So, well, you know what? We'll save that for the playoff conversation when Deshaun and Lamar get together in January. Steph Stradley is with the Houston Chronicle. She writes about the Texans. She is an attorney and is preaching love and COVID aftermath in the great state of Texas. Stay safe down there, all right? We'll see you soon.
You too.
Steph Stradley joining us here. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, anywhere the internet travels, including Houston, Texas, where my heart was always with the Oilers. I was trying to maybe get an Oiler mask to wear or something for the plane ride down there. You can find us merging WNST.net with Baltimore Positive all into one place very, very soon. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking. Baltimore.